All right, so let's take a look at just some of the features of the graphing calculator, some of the basics, and what kind of you'll need to know throughout the year. Okay, as I said, a lot of what we do, I'm going to explain it as we go. All right, so many different features this calculator has, we couldn't possibly go over them all right now. All right, so let's take a look. Let's get that up in case we need it. Okay, first, most obvious thing, what do you think the best thing to know how to do would be? Yeah, turn it on. That'd be great. You press on. All right. If you're not at the home screen, you might be at some other screen. You can always get back to the home screen. Just press second, quit, and that should bring you back to the home screen. Now, if there was stuff on the home screen you wanted to get rid of, clear. You press clear, and that'll get rid of it. Okay, another thing which isn't as big of a deal as it used to be is the contrast. On the black and white calculators, the screen would start to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer as the battery power died. These are all rechargeable batteries. They're on charge 24/7 except when you're using them. So the batteries most likely aren't going to die. But if you press, and I don't know if I can do it on this one, but if you press second and up, you might see your screen getting brighter. Does anybody see it getting brighter?
Yes.
Yeah. And then if you press second and then down, I can't do it on mine, it should be getting darker. You see it getting brighter and darker? So, yeah, you know what you can even do? You can press second and then hold up, and it goes as bright as it can. And if you press second and then hold down, that's as dark as it goes. Okay? So you can put it, wherever the brightness is good for you. Again, not as big of a deal with this calculator because you're probably never going to need to adjust the brightness. Okay, another important button, enter. Okay, so anytime you want to actually compute something, like 5 to the second power, you hit enter. Okay, like any calculator. All right, we've already been using the second button a little bit, and you're probably used to it from other calculators, but the second button will access any of these functions in blue. All right, so let's say you wanted to do something with a matrix. Well, you can get to matrix, but you got to press second, matrix. Okay, and now you could do stuff with matrices like you've probably done in Algebra 2. Right, I'm going to press second because I want to quit, go back to the home screen. Alpha, well, we don't use alpha a lot, but you can use it for storing a value into memory. So on a regular calculator, you might have like one to 4 places you could store something in memory. Well, here you can store something in every letter of the alphabet. So let's say you got an answer of 91.5, okay? And you wanted to remember that answer for something, okay, or use it later on. Well, what you can do is take that answer, press the store button, get a little arrow, and then you can press alpha and pick any letter A through Z. Okay, I'm just going to store it in letter, I don't know, E. Okay, so now if I just press alpha and bring up E and hit enter, it shows me the number that's in E. And I can do arithmetic with it. Like I could do E times 2. And it should take 91.5 and double it. Okay? And again, you can store anything in the letters A through Z. So you have plenty of places to store stuff if you need to. I don't generally think we do a lot of that. Okay, any questions on that? Storing is probably useful if you're going to get into writing computer programs for it, which you can. Generally, that's when storing stuff in variables starts to come into play. In this class, we don't really do any programming on the calculator. If you're interested in it, let me know. I can definitely show you some things. But it's not something we do in this class. Now, notice when I wanted to type in these letters, I had to keep pressing alpha each time, because if I don't, it goes back to the regular function. Well, it's kind of like holding shift on your keyboard to do capitals. You can kind of turn on alpha lock. If you press second, alpha. Now it's just going to keep typing letters until we turn it off again. And to turn it off, just press second, alpha lock. Just like, or actually, you know what? Alpha, sorry, just press alpha. And now it's back to numbers. So just a little bit about that. Let's see, mode. That's another really important button. So in mode, we can do lots of different things. So generally, first three options we won't really do much with. Okay, but the next option, when we get to trig, we'll do a lot with it. Okay, changing from radians to degrees. Has anyone heard of radians before? No? Well, radians have to do with measuring an angle. Okay, so we'll use different modes. You guys are probably pretty used to functions. That's like y equals kind of stuff. Well, there's other kinds of graphs we're going to study this year that are not y equals, parametric and polar. You can use real and complex numbers. If you leave it on real and you try to take the square root of -4, it's going to tell you it can't be done. There we go. It gives you an error. It says it's not a real answer. But if you change the mode on the calculator so it can use complex numbers, then it'll give you an answer. And the answer should be what?
I times 2.
Oh yeah, I times 2 or 2i. Yep. So there's the square root of -4. All right. So that part has to do with using imaginaries. The other things we really won't do too much with. Those are the big ones that we'll use under mode. Okay, what else? Negative sign versus minus sign. Okay, something to be careful with. If I want to do a negative number, you've got to use this negative below the 3. Okay, so this is -5. If I did this, if I try to type in a minus and then a 5, it's trying to take the last answer I had and subtract 5. That's not a -5. Okay. Likewise, if you try to use this for subtraction, that's not going to work very well. Okay, so make sure when you're doing subtraction, it's the gray button on the right, negative sign, down below there. Okay, is there a difference between, say, this and putting parentheses around the negative and the 5, like this? What do you think? Difference on that? Yeah. What's going to happen when I hit enter this time? Yeah, it's going to come out +5, okay? So anytime you have to deal with a negative number, if you're doing an operation to it, generally we have to put it in parentheses. Okay, so that might be something you're used to, not used to. Depends on the kind of calculator you've had. Okay, well, we're looking at powers. Okay, obviously they have a button for squaring. They also have a button for cubing if you go under math. And it's the third option down. So let's say you wanted to cube the number 2. But that's all they have special buttons for. Does anybody know how we could do a power other than 2 and 3? Yeah, I use the caret symbol. So here's 2 to the 5th power. And what's nice on these calculators is it doesn't, bring that up. It doesn't actually write it with the caret symbol. Okay, it actually puts it in like it would look on paper. Okay, older calculators like this one. Okay, would look just like that. All right, so this one's kind of nice. It puts it where it should go. So if we can do powers, what's the opposite of a power? Or for, a root. Okay, we can do roots. Well, there's a square root button, which I already showed you earlier. Press second, and then square root. Take the square root of 9. There's also a special button for cube root. That's under math. It's the 4th option down. But beyond that, we don't have a button. Let's say we wanted to do the... Yeah, it's exactly. If you want to do the 5th root of 32, you type in the root you want, math, and then the 5th option down. Okay, there's a little X there, meaning you can do any root, and it's going to do the root of the number I just typed in. How it would look on an older calculator. It doesn't actually fill in that 5. Okay? This calculator is a little smarter. It puts the 5 right where it should go. That's the same idea. So those are roots. What's it called when you take a number and you flip it? Yeah, reciprocal. So there's a built-in function here. If you wanted to take 0.2 and flip it, well, you can type it in by hand. 1 divided by 0.2. Or press the button that says x to the negative 1. Okay, and when I flip 0.2, what should I get?
5.
5. 0.2 is 1/5. So you flip it, it's 5 over 1. What's another way I could flip that without using that button? Based on something we just learned. Remember, that negative 1 is just an exponent, right? Yeah, I could do it as a negative 1 exponent. It looks exactly the same. I just typed it in a little different. Okay? Any questions on that? All right, let's say you had something typed in, kind of a long formula, and you didn't want to have to go back and erase it and retype in the whole thing. All right? Usually that's going to happen on our graph screen. So let's say we had x squared, sine of x, cosine of x. And I wanted to graph that. And I said, oh, wait a minute. I meant to put sine 2x, not x. Well, what I can do is I can go back. And I have to be careful, because if I start typing right now, what it's going to do is it's going to type over what's there. If I press 2, well, now that's not what I wanted either. But if I press second, insert, and kind of see how the cursor just changed, it's going to keep inserting stuff. It's not going to type over what's there. Okay, so second insert is helpful if you want to go back, edit something without retyping the whole thing. Any questions on that? All right, what else? If you want to delete something, you can use the delete key. Like, let's say, you know what? I don't need the 2. Just press delete and get rid of it. Okay. Sometimes you're typing something in and you want to reuse something you just had. If you press second, enter, it'll bring up the last thing you typed in. And you can keep doing it for quite a while. It's going back through everything we typed in this class. Again, helpful if you typed in something that was kind of long. You just want to bring it back up on the screen and reuse it. All right. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it for most of kind of the basics on the calculator. We're going to get into graphing and all kinds of stuff a lot more later on. But does anybody have any kind of general questions about the calculator? I think in class, most people think I make it look pretty easy, and then they get home and they get stuck. But you can always go on the video and try to look at it and figure it out that way too. All right, so let's pause for a second. All right, so one last thing I'll show you is just how to change a decimal to a fraction. So So let's say you did a calculation, you got 0.25 as an answer. If you press math, the first option is this little arrow, fraction. If you press that, it'll automatically take the last answer and change it to a fraction, 1/4. All right, so that's kind of handy. If the test or quiz is asking for a fraction, it's a good way to convert it. All right, so for homework tonight, make sure you have your syllabus sheet signed, the calculator contract signed, and then tomorrow we'll look at sections 1, 2, and we'll do the first part of section 1.3.